Blog Talk Radio.
Hey guys, it's those guys with your host Matt Marrero along with your other host.
I'm Anthony Toto. Hey.
It's Anthony Toto. Hey. So, Anthony Toto, hey, I might have keep on doing that, but Anthony Toto, we are talking about Star Trek TOS, which is short for the original series. In case, imagine how many people right now who are listening to this who are like huge Star Trek fans, like bigger than me, that are like, is this fucker serious? So stands for the original series. And we're trying to take things slow here. We're doing things episode by episode, not due to the fact that both Anthony and I don't have time. No.
For anything.
For anything, really. That's why this episode will most likely be shorter than some of our usual reviews of like movies and stuff like that. We're just taking things slow, but we've already talked about for Star Trek Thursday, you and I, Anthony, we talked about both pilots, which means that once it becomes an actual episode of the show, we're skipping it. As a review, it's like we already talked about it. But we're talking about both pilots, or we talked about rather, and then the last Star Trek Thursday, John and I, which you don't know John, but you guys should definitely meet and just have like a Star Trek fan off, whatever you want to call it, like a nerd fest.
Yes, we should.
You should, because he's
down.
actually older than us. So like he actually saw TNG while it was airing, while he was but a wee little lad. He was 3 at the time.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it is. So that's why he and I have done TNG. We talked about the quote-unquote pilot two-parter. So it's just so funny, for me anyway, jumping between like TOS and TNG and just seeing how, yes, of course, both of them are products of their time. Usually, I think you and I talked about this with the pilots, Anthony. We talked about the idea that sci-fi is obviously a product of its time, so it can only be as advanced in terms of its morale and its, what it's trying to put forward as it was at the time, as society was at the time, or at least the writers were. So it was just kind of funny, a few things in this episode, especially even comparing them a little bit. I might do it too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but comparing it to the pilot for TNG, and it's like, wow. It's just so funny how it's kind of not one-to-one, but, a certain plot point of, last of its kind situation coming up. And it's just kind of funny how in this one it's just, kill it, Bones. Lord, forgive me. And with TNG, it's just, what will you do, Captain? Will you shoot it? No, of course not. What the fuck is your problem, Q? Like, it's just so funny how things have shifted from when this came out. This episode, of course, talking about the man trap. Dun 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 dun. The man trap versus the first episode of TNG, or that pilot, the two-parter. It's just, isn't it funny, Anthony? Like how interesting, like similar plots but handled completely differently.
Yeah, and I think that's also illustrates the differences between the captains. Like Kirk will punch anything, and Picard will quote Shakespeare at you.
Yeah, no, I mean that. Yeah, no, 100%. You're right. That's what I said. I was talking to John about this again, the pilot, and when I said it to him, the way I worded it was, it's like it kind of feels like they both reflect the person watching, like two different times throughout their different parts of them throughout their lives because of how the fan base had grown, where like you look at Kirk and you're like, all right, that's the time in my life when I was with hookers and cocaine, and then Picard, he has like a house and credit, Yeah,
he's grown up now.
He's a grown up, but with Kirk, it's just like pew pew, like it's just like it's like green women and cocaine. It's like, of course, Kirk, but things have changed. So, but you're right, though. It definitely does show the difference between the captains. And I'm not saying there's something completely wrong with Kirk's approach. After all, of course, I'm not going to say that there's not a single Star Trek episode ever where they have a threat in front of them. I mean, she's a threat to them. And it's like, what if we hug her? It's like, well, I mean, the suction cups will suck all the salt out of your body, so you can't really hug her. So, like, I totally get that. Don't get me wrong. But it's just funny how they really try to put forward the point of it's like the water buffalo. There's only one of its kind left. It is the only one left. And instead of Kirk being like, just drop it there, fuck it, it kind of turned into an episode of like a kind of Twilight Zone for kids. No, like seriously though, because I love Twilight Zone, but I don't know if I would say it's always for children. Like, children can watch it. I'm not saying that they can't, but I feel like even though I saw some as a kid, I feel like some of the stuff, watching it now, I'm like, holy shit, right? Versus when I was younger. So it feels like Star Trek, at least with this episode, it was kind of like a Twilight Zone, but for the wee little ones. Because I told you, like, my dad used to watch it when he was Star Trek, and I would argue Twilight Zone probably too, but when he was a kid. So that's why he introduced me to TOS. So I feel like it kind of felt like a Twilight Zone episode, sort of, especially with the big reveal at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that, but you have a point. Yeah, the episode does seem like a Twilight Zone episode.
And it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that I do wonder if they were trying to, I guess, maybe mirror that style to make people feel like, hey, it's not, don't think this is just some show for the kids. Even though, of course, it was huge with kids at the time. But it's not just some show for the kids, because, look, there's romance, there's drama. I would argue TNG maybe seemingly has a bit more character drama than this. But there's still, drama. So it's not just for the... Yes. And so, but it did feel toned down compared to either some of the heavier... I'm not saying that there's nothing anti-war in this show. I mean, again, it's Star Trek for fuck's sakes. But definitely looking at the first episode of TNG where literally you have Q being like, you are a species built on war. And it's like, no, we're not. We've changed. Versus here where it's just, if Q is just like, you're a species built on war. I feel like Kirk would be like, should I punch him or should you, Bones? I'll take a crack at him, Captain. Like, it would just, I don't know why. They just feel like they're a crew who is just very... very trigger happy. Not like set it to stun, yes, but very trigger happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to see when certain characters, and I'm speaking in terms of it, all sci-fi, like when certain characters, when it's okay to kill and when it's okay not to. And when you should and when you shouldn't, and it's very interesting to see some of the decisions that characters make, and
especially who writes them and what year. I mean, look at something like Doctor Who. I mean, that's a whole fucking other video and a podcast in and of itself,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And,
like, when is it okay for him to kill or not, or her?
When is it okay?
Or not?
And he or she has, but not always. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly,
but not
right?
Always.
But and sometimes depending on the year, depending on the head writer, maybe never.
Yeah.
Like that's the funny thing, right? Depending on the year, it's just like, I've never done that. Have you seen Classic You? Wait a minute, hold on. Hold on one second. Actually, it's funny. I used to believe that stuff until I started watching Classic Who, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Wait 1 second. Oh, you know what's something that's interesting? When you watch this show, this episode, maybe it's just me, but you watch this episode, it seems like the shots, I think we mentioned this, you and I, Anthony, when we talked about the pilot, because it's been a while. Any shot that has a woman in it, or at least when they're trying to make Nancy look beautiful, right?
Yeah.
There's a certain type of shine that they use, like a certain type of exposure, right?
Yeah, it definitely feels...
No, they do that same exact thing with Kirk. Like, look at this gorgeous man. They don't do that shit with Bones. They do it with Kirk and with Nancy. It's so funny. I feel like Shatner was like, I would like some of that. Okay. Look, it's going to be great. Let me show you how it would be done. Like, just Shatner's like, sir, are you directing yourself? Yes, I might be. I feel like, because there was always talk about that on set, but it's just so funny where, like, you'll see, like, a bunch of different characters, and it's just like, yeah, like, like Leonard Nimoy, like, good-looking guy. Sulu, good-looking guy. But they don't get that shine like Kirk does in those single shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful too because it's like I feel like Shatner looks at the crew and just goes, look, I understand that Spock is talking, but could we all wonder what would my reaction be to Spock talking?
So yeah, put
and
the
like
camera on
some,
me.
yeah, and like no, there's just certain parts where I'm just like, other people are talking, but it's on Kirk as if like he's just like, yes, oh, really, oh, by the way, something not for kids. The body count was rather high for Star Trek. Maybe it's been a while. Has it been a while?
There are episodes where it is high. That will happen.
Okay, so then it's just me then, because maybe it's been a while. Because in my head, I was like, look, I'm not saying a red shirt won't die every now and again, every episode, but like multiple people with multiple shirts were just dying, and even on the ship too. I was like, oh shit.
You know, it's not it is a, you know, that whole thing that red shirts die. You know, that happens, and that's there for a reason. That whole saying that, you know, red shirts die, but not only red shirts die.
Right. It's just more common that people with red shirts will die. Okay. Yeah, so I'm only bringing this up because like even on the ship, like how do you feel about, look, you could say, not you personally, but the general you, whoever's listening in, you could say that I'm, you know, nitpicking, but the fact that Nancy, or at least, you know, the creature that was pretending to be both Nancy and many other people on the ship, and also made up people, when the creature was on the ship and it actually got beamed up, my thought is, do they not have a detection device for that? You would imagine that they just don't beam up every time.
I feel like in the future they might have, like if it were Next Generation or Voyager or Deep Space Nine, they would have the technology for that, but maybe they wouldn't have the technology for that in the original series, because the original series is you know, happened before them. So my guess would be it might have just looked like Nancy in a detection thing.
Well, no, it didn't. It wasn't supposed to look like Nancy. Remember, it was supposed to look like the other crewman.
Oh yeah, the
died.
other crew member. Oh, sorry.
Right.
That's when he was beamed up. It was probably meant to just be him, and they just thought it was him, and no one questioned it.
Well, no, yeah.
No,
I'm not saying that that's not a good, you know, fan canon reason. It's just like, because other people see Nancy differently or the creature differently depending on who they are, you would think one of them would be like, hey, look at that broad, because apparently they speak like that in the future 1960s rather. They were like, hey, look at her. And it's like, what do you mean? That's the crewman. Like, you would think there'd be some little random confusion, because
maybe the Nancy creature could, that's what I'm going to call it, by the way, the Nancy creature.
Got it.
But maybe the Nancy creature could, you know, control who saw him, her, it as it wanted to.
No, it could. I'm just saying that, like, no, I'm not saying it couldn't. I'm saying that.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
When you establish the episode with, hey, it's interesting, I see her differently than you see her, and then even though that happened, apparently I guess everyone can see her as the crewman, and there's no like weird anomalies. Like, I'm just saying it's really bad that you can just beam up any Tom, Dick, and Harry and they can just fucking go crazy on the ship. Like, you would think by the time they've sent them out into space and they have beam technology, beaming up and also shooting with beams, you would think that they would be able to be like, that's not who we thought it was.
Yeah, which that, if I'm not mistaken, that happens again.
Oh, never mind then. So that's just a common theme with TOS.
Like something like that happens again, where they beam up, I think, where they beam up someone who is not who they think they are and stuff like that. I'm convinced, I could be wrong, but I'm convinced that's not the only episode where that happens.
I mean, probably. You gotta. No, I mean, like, if you have that, if that's a problem, even though they're like in super duper secret ultra future with all this tech, if that's gonna happen once, you might as well do it again. It's clearly a problem with the security, and they can't fix it because they're out in space voyaging. They're not like on, at a dock or something to get that fixed. They're updated. They're just flying, and there's no space Wi-Fi to kind of fix that firmware. They're just in the depths of space. But yeah, I don't. So the plot itself, though, I don't think it was a terrible plot. I mean, it's something that I think now, looking at what we know of sci-fi now, it's very much something that's been done to death. But we all have to remember this happened in the late 60s. I'm not saying this couldn't have been done at least once or twice before, at least in novels. But I feel like for TV, maybe this was somewhat breaking some ground in some ways at the time. I'm not saying I'm a historian on it. But I'm not saying I'm a historian on it. I'm just saying that, like, it is a plot that I think in 2019, as we're recording this, it's been done to death. But I don't think I should hold it accountable for what's been done afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's the best. There are probably other newer iterations of the plot that have been better. Like, I think in a way I enjoy TNG's interpretation of it. The idea of let's save this versus let's destroy it. But still, also, I would like to say I love the makeup work that they did. Also, I love whoever did like the work on the plants that Sulu was taking care of.
I loved that. I love his plants. I love Sulo. Oh my God, I love Sulu's plants.
No, I think I really like the plants so much because it felt like something that we don't usually, or at least from what I remember, I don't usually see often in Star Trek, just kind of building up not just what the characters' motivations are outside, like once they get on the ground, but them having some lives and some sort of calling on the ship
interest
itself.
On the ship, yeah.
Yeah, so it was really nice, especially in its first episode. I mean, technically not, of course, because the pilot sort of counts, but looking at Netflix, technically they have it listed as the quote-unquote first episode. So, like, people tuning in and, not seeing the pilot or anything like that, seeing this, it's like not only, of course, do you have this, this crew of people from all around the world, heck, of course, with Spock all around the galaxy, of course, but still having these people who are all different in some way or another coming together and then having these very interesting interests, like, oh yeah, Sulu, he just works with plants, and also these are like creepy ass space plants that like he's like, no, they're fine, but of course that woman, she was like, are they fine though? Are they okay? Because no, because they look like they were getting prepped to be like Little Shop of Horror understudies. Like they look like they were just, like this was their, like they did this and then like they're like child plant actors and then like 20 years later they're in the 80s Little Shop of Horrors. I'm just saying.
And then some of them grew up to play the piranha plant in Mario Brothers.
Well, yeah, that was kind of a late addition to their career thing. The same way like Bob Hoskins was in the live-action Super Mario Brothers movie. Like it's something like that. The peak, I would argue, was pre-Piranha Plant. But yes, they then went on to play the Piranha Plant. Yep. You are correct. Yes. What's interesting is just like Pertwee, the Third Doctor, the newest Piranha Plant is actually the son of the original Piranha Plant.
Wait, what? I don't follow that.
No, just like Pertwee's son went on to be like in Gotham, and like other.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
I
think he even didn't he play? Yeah, doesn't he play Pertwee in the Big Finish, the audio?
No, he doesn't. That's someone else. Someone else does the voice of the Third Doctor in Big Finish.
Whoops. That's all right. Then that's on me. But my God, such a high body count. Back to the episode. Jesus Christ. No, because like that's the thing though. Like, and also the fact that like even though you said that some enemies, intruders have come on the ship before, has anyone ever died on the ship from like an outside intruder? I mean, obviously they've had to, but like that seems a rarity.
I'm sure.
But it seems like it would be a rarity because, like, their ship is supposed to be like their fortress. Like, it's like, oh, we came into the enemy base and we killed some of your men. Like, holy shit.
I don't think, it doesn't happen often, but it definitely has happened and probably will again.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot if I asked you this last time. How do you feel about the updated special effects?
The updated special effects for the remastered thing?
Well, yes, because I'm assuming that's the version that they're using for Netflix.
Yeah. I think it's fine. There's something though that is irreplaceable about watching the original version without the added special effects.
Yeah.
But I'm not against the use of added special effects.
I am against it. But in this case, it wasn't intrusive. Like, it's not like they were like, hey, let's add Nancy via special effects to, like, a bunch of background shots to make it scarier. Like, showing her,
true.
like, you know. No, because, like, that's something that, like, Star Wars would do.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But my thing is, as long as they don't do anything to tamper with the story or change anything with the story or the original script or how it was written or anything like that, I'm not really that against it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why, like, I'm okay with it in this case versus Star Wars,
which they really didn't.
No.
In terms of the Star Trek episodes, they just like enhanced things. I don't think they went out of their way to significantly alter any episodes from the original, the way it was planned to be.
No, and I could swear, and I might be wrong here, but I could swear that the DVDs and the Blu-rays actually have both versions.
I think they do. I believe they do.
So if they do, then I also really don't care, because honestly, I would love if Star Wars did that every now and again. Like, hey, we know that, you know, these are the special editions, but honestly, if you want one that hasn't been enhanced and is honestly just an SD version, like it doesn't look as good as the Blu-ray does, but we have the space to include it, here, take it, you plebeians, and I'd be like, thank you so much. Thank you, Disney. I will take these scraps. So, like, I'd be okay with that. But to have that versus what we have now, where it's like, oh, it looks as good as it could ever look as of this time. Like, Star Wars looks amazing, but for some reason Boba Fett's going to be, like, breakdancing in the background. We're trying to build that up because Lucas said he wanted to have that happen once. So now Boba Fett's breakdancing. And I'm like, I don't, why is he breakdancing on Tatooine? Could we just not? Why is he, what? He's on Tatooine. Why didn't he kill, Luke? What's going on? Like, it's just, you don't want him to fucking mess with the story.
I'm grateful nothing like that has happened with Star Trek.
It's only a matter of time. No, honestly, I'm also grateful. Yeah, right. Well, what I'm happy about is that they. I was reading up on it because I was wondering why. Because I've never seen any other Star Trek other than a large chunk of TOS and one episode of TNG. So I haven't seen and of course, you know, the movies, but like I haven't seen TV Star Trek other than that. However, Voyager.
Oh, you haven't seen any more TNG other than the first?
I know about things via the public, you know, via just pop culture. But I don't. But I haven't seen it. Oh God, that's so odd. Sorry. If you guys don't know, any longtime fans might know. I'll have an episode on in the background as we're talking about it again. And when the plant was just doing its screaming, you could immediately tell. I don't know how I couldn't tell before. You could tell that it's just a hand in the form of the plant. No, but I couldn't tell because when it was like docile and like it was really like kept in there, it was hard to tell. Like obviously, yes, you know it's a puppet, but I didn't know how the puppet was being worked. But when it was screaming, I was like, my God, that's just a hand with 5 fingers. Like it's really weird how it just connected in this moment. And of course, that also is a little bit of the problem with making something look this good, is that when it comes to sci-fi, you know, with the special effects and things like that, you're going to be able to tell now, even with, because here's the thing too, I was mentioning earlier, just a second ago, I was doing some research because Voyager was on BBC America. Now I had it muted, but it was on in the background, and Voyager, I look at it and I'm like, wow, the masters they sent them did not look good. Now I have no problem with SD television, but I say not look good in comparison to seeing how TOS and TNG look on Netflix. I'm like, Voyager, what happened? Why did Paramount do you dirty like this, Voyager? and I realized, because I was doing research on it, I looked it up. Apparently they did TNG and TOS on film, and they did the special effects separately. So that meant that they could rescan the film. It was a lot of work, especially for TNG, but they could rescan the film and then redo the special effects separately, and especially if they really needed to update them. Or if they just scanned them the right way, they maybe didn't even need to redo them. So that's why TOS and TNG looked that good. However, when things started to change and it became a lot cheaper to do things on video, it got to a point where now the only masters that are going around that are finished masters of like Voyager, not Enterprise. Enterprise, they did something differently for HD, which is why Enterprise is in HD. But when it came to Voyager and Deep Space Nine, I'm not saying they don't have the original film masters, but they don't have the original special effects.
Yeah.
So in other words, they could rescan all the film, but then they'd have to redo the special effects, which apparently cost millions of dollars for TNG.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
It's very extensive and time consuming. Like I knew that it was done on film, at least TOS, so it makes sense as to why they could scan it in. But it's just so funny seeing TOS, seeing TNG, and then seeing Voyager, and me just being like, wow, like I love Grain, but my God. Like Grain and ghosting, and I'm just like, wow. Versus like I could see on Bones, on what's the actor's name again?
DeForest Kelley.
Yes, DeForest Kelley. Thank you. Like I could see on DeForest Kelley. I'm like, well, the future does not take care of acne. Like it's just that clear.
Yeah.
Like depending on the shot, I'm like, whoa. Spock must have some really Doc Spock. Oh God, just Doc Ock taking control of Spock. The whole ship would be fucked. The spectacular Spock. Anyway, what I'm saying is this, Anthony. When you look at certain shots of Spock, you're like, wow, I wonder why he's hiding his real ears underneath those clearly fake ones. He must have something wrong with his real Spock ears, and he just feels ashamed. So he has these fake ones on top. So it just really kind of sucks because they, of course, will touch up certain things with, like the ship and maybe some, phaser photon blasts. But like when you look at things like, again, like the hand in the plant, you can't change that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird disconnect for me. That's my one issue I have with like newer special effects too. It's kind of a weird disconnect where it's like it goes from like, oh my God, the ship looks so beautifully animated, and then it just cuts to them, and it's like, right, this is something that was filmed literally like 50, nearly 60 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that's a good argument against it. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, though,
and it would be the same thing as if they had done the same thing, but with classic Who episodes, that it would probably look just as weird and just as.
It would look even weirder due to the fact that like the black and white factor, but I know you're not referring to that. But like yes, like it would definitely look like if BBC actually sat back and said, "Oh shit, we care about Doctor Who," and they put money into it. They care about Doctor Who, but like no, they care about Doctor Who, but we all know all the stories about classic Who and how literally the biggest enemy of the Doctor was not the Master, it was actually the BBC.
Oh my God.
No, literally every single time the Master's like, I'm going to foil your plans, Doctor. Doctor's like, well, I would argue the BBC is trying a bit harder. Like, just every time the ratings come in, they're trying to foil all of our plots, even yours, Master. But yeah, if they did that with Doctor Who, man, it would be jarring if they had like a newer looking TARDIS and then it just cuts to like them in the even if it looked beautiful, which I'm pretty sure they actually have the I think they have the Doctor on Blu-ray now, right? Or like older Who, or is it on DVD?
Older Who on Blu-ray, yes, they do, I think.
So then I guess they must have done something well, but I'm assuming they didn't like I'm hoping. And look, I haven't seen it yet, but I don't
think they added much special effects. I think it was like just HDitized. I just made that word up.
I know. Yeah,
I think
it was rescanned.
Yeah, made more HD, but I don't think any special effects were effed with.
All I'm saying is this, Anthony. I want to be able to see. I want to see the strings. That's all I'm saying. I just want to see the strings. Well, because we're gonna see the strings. I mean, I felt the same way. I was watching a Sentai movie, one that came out like 20 years ago, but it was in HD, and because it was it was in Blu-ray, and I felt so bad because I'm watching it and I'm like, no, I see the strings in the opening. There aren't supposed to be strings on the mecha because you originally see this thing on a CRT television. That's like tiny as hell, and now I'm watching it on like a huge television. Actually, I think I was even watching it on a laptop screen, but still seeing it in Blu-ray, I'm like, no, I can see the strings. Why? But anyway, so yeah, I like you said much earlier, all that matters is did they mess with the plot, and they didn't.
No.
And I'm okay with that.
And I think that's the most important thing to me. If they had messed with the plot, then I would be completely against it.
Exactly, and I love another thing too that I love. I love Nancy's or the creature's monster design. Like it was so creepy and interesting, and I think it was a great way to tell people like, hey, this is the shit you're gonna get week to week, so don't fucking miss it.
Yeah, it's only gonna get weirder.
Yeah, no, it was a good first episode because I think first official non-pilot episode because it's a great way to tell people it's a thriller. I know, to some people, they're like, really, that's a thriller? And again, things have changed. The times have changed. But for the time, yes, it was. I would argue it was a daytime thriller. Or prime time, rather. I'm assuming this aired in prime time.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it's a prime time thriller. You know what I mean? What is killing all of these people? Oh, it's her. Wait a minute. No, it's this. Wait a minute. It's this. Oh God, look at the creature. Disgusting. I know some people might be like, it's like a B movie thing, but I don't have a problem with B movies. I like B movies. So it was cool to have it be a creature of the week. And I know Star Trek is usually monster of the week, but again, I think I said this to you. Not again to the people listening, but I said this to you, Anthony, off podcast. It's a monster of the week, but not to me like Power Rangers, where they have no qualms about being like, let's kill it.
Yeah.
And it's not the last. We can't say it's technically the last of its kind, even though arguably I guess it is because Rita just made it. But either way, we're gonna kill it. Different than in this case where. I'm not saying that you can't call it Monster of the Week, but again, there's a general idea of it's a mission of peace. We're here to promote peace across the galaxy, damn it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So
it's an ongoing question.
It's an ongoing quest/question. Peace? No, but I think it was a very interesting first episode. Also, something that I like about it as well, something that I think needs to happen in more television shows. And I'm not going to say nowadays, I don't want to be that kind of person, but I want to say in general, I like how they just start off the episode with them just in space and them talking to each other like they've known each other for years. None of this but what about Kirk at the Academy? Shut up. Show me them doing the things.
Yeah, that's what I like about it, and that stuff does come up when it's relevant.
Yeah,
and that's the important thing. When something happens and that it reminds Kirk of his past or something, they investigate something in the past. That's when that happens, but it only comes up when absolutely relevant, which I like too.
Which, if you're talking about Kirk, is usually when a woman is involved.
Yeah, that's true.
By the way, with what we know now in hindsight, with what we know now in hindsight, do you kind of want to punch Kirk in the face just for all of the stuff he said to Bones?
A little bit.
At the time, if you're watching it for the first time, you're like, hey, man, like, Bones, you got to get it together. Like, come on, like, it's your captain telling you this stuff. You got to get it together. But, like, after 3 seasons, you're like, all right, first off, Kirk, if you've been doing this shit beforehand that we didn't see on screen, someone should have called your ass out, and it should have been Spock.
Yeah.
Spock
does call Kirk out a lot.
Oh, and it's good.
For some things, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But in this episode, how interesting is it too, looking at their roles in this episode, and you know, no like spoilers for the future, but like just how their characters have kind of really changed over time. Like they were, even though Spock and Kirk, even though they were in like a meeting room type thing, like they did have a round table going on, but it still very much feels as if when Kirk says something, it happens. He is the captain. Yeah. Damn it!
I think that's a difference between the very beginning of the show and versus later.
Yeah.
Kirk is clearly in command in the beginning.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying he's not later, but
he always is. But the dynamics sort of change because later you can tell that people have less of a problem speaking up.
No, like you definitely tell like there's a bit of an atmosphere where people, I think even the crowd is in on it. Everyone can kind of clown on Kirk a little bit.
Yeah, because it seems like later episodes, it's more in the beginning. It's more cemented. Everyone's cemented in their roles. Toward the end, everyone is more friendly and familiar with each other, and everyone speaks up. If they have you're going to hear people's opinions. You're gonna hear McCoy's opinions. You're gonna hear Spock's opinions. You're gonna hear Scotty's opinions, and you're gonna hear Uhura's opinions. Like you're gonna hear people's opinions more. Yeah.
Scotty was where the hell was Scotty? We definitely needed Scotty. Well, we needed Scotty,
did.
And we needed Bones to be a bit because it's interesting because I'm not saying that Bones wasn't a medic. I mean, they literally call him the medic, but a lot throughout the episode. But it definitely seems like Bones was just more of the look. Honestly, at this point, I'm just doing tests on bodies. Like you would think I'm the guy that's supposed to save people, but we're finding a lot of dead bodies. I'm just trying to see how they died at this point. Like it seems like he's in this episode. It's like I know they called you a medic, but man, are you the mortician at this point, really? So like I feel like throughout the episode, throughout the series, like you were saying, they definitely their roles definitely get expanded, which is good because it definitely feels like in this episode I'm not saying they didn't have some character, interactions here and there. I mean, like Sulu got a lot more than I thought he would in the first episode, but it definitely does feel as if they were focusing more on this, this thriller, this plot. Like, oh my God, is he going to kill, or is the creature going to kill this person? Are they going to kill this person? I mean, looking back on it, the fact that it could kill Uhura, I was like, oh my God. Like at the time, maybe people were like, oh, maybe she will die because they don't know. I don't know if Nichelle Nichols was a huge name back in the day. I legit don't know because
she was.
What I mean, yeah.
Not in terms of film and television, but she was a stage actress.
Okay, all right.
I don't know how well known she was in the stage, but I know she did musical theater. Yes.
Also, something else I would like to note as well, and this is something I mentioned with John for the TNG episode, the TNG podcast that we talked about the two-parter. How things kind of how they change over time, but in a different way. Not so much in the scope of the show and how it was written and things like that, but more so how nowadays it's kind of interesting how you have people being like, Discovery. And by the way, I haven't seen Discovery, so it could generally be a trash show. But the people who, their reasons why it's trash is because, like, oh, God, a woman who is the captain, who is African American. You know what? This whole thing is just a liberal dream, isn't it? And look, this isn't me. This
too
is
politically correct as I
right.
hear the argument.
Yes, and again, I'm not trying to bring it anywhere that it isn't brought to online, and this is a podcast that's being released online. We're not on the radio airwaves. We're on online, So that's relevant only because, again, you hear these arguments online, and I feel like at the time, and maybe I'm wrong here, but at the time, having two women sitting on a meeting with all those men, granted they are telling their stories, but having them sit in like that, and even having Uhura that close to Kirk and him taking everything she and the other woman say at face value, I think nowadays it's something that people are like, yeah, and so what? Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Like, people are like, yeah, they're women, and who cares? But I feel like at the time that might be something that maybe some people were like, whoa, hold on. I mean, the alien guy over there, what's his name? Ook, he's cool, but her? I don't know. Like, I feel, look, maybe I'm the one that's off here, but at the time when with the big kiss, which everyone knows about the big kiss, everyone knows what I'm talking about. With the big kiss, I think we talked about this last time, you and I talked about TOS, Anthony. Some states did not carry it. They were like, we're not airing Star Trek this week.
Yeah.
I don't know if they aired like a previous episode or what they replaced it with, but some networks were like, yeah, we're not having this episode of Star Trek. They're kissing. We're not interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
How crazy is that, right? Like how times have changed.
Yeah. It seems really it seems laughable now.
Yeah, because it's just like it's a mixed race, two people of different races kissing. Oh no! Turn off the. Please make sure your kids have gone to bed. But I mean, honestly, but again, at the time, like I do wonder if, because I only bring this up. Everyone's like, "Well, Matt, just shut the fuck up. What's your point?" Well, it's weird that you told me to shut the fuck up and then asked me what my point was. But my point is the fact that it's just, every Star Trek does something that I think for its time is considered like either political or socially incorrect. The social standards. And I just feel like it's funny how you have some people saying, like, not even about Discovery, just in general saying, I want to go back to a time when Star Trek wasn't political.
Yeah,
it
doesn't exist.
That argument, that ain't it, Chief.
That's the argument that I make to anyone who says something like that. It's like you can argue that the original series in its time was, politically correct if you want to go there. If you want to use that term.
Exactly. But that's the thing, because I would argue it would be politically incorrect because the politically correct thing at the time, again, at the time of the show, would be to not have the kiss.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But still, people talk about political correctness in a different sense. So, like, they're like, no, politically correct is this now. It's like, yeah, but again, like at the time, if you're, like you said, if you're using that term, that would be Uhura having any big role on the ship, really. That would be, a lot of what's, and granted, yes, there's still little bits here and there, like the fact that you have those three dudes that are like, hey, I'd like her on my holodeck. And then it's so funny how interesting was it? They were like hitting on her, and then they look at the creature weird because they're like, he's staring at her, but like not how we're staring at her. And I know we're staring at her in a way that we shouldn't, but he's staring at her in a completely different light.
Yeah.
No, but it's so interesting because it's just like, we're going to hit on her. What is he doing now? Like, he's just like staring and and apparently Uhura speaks Swahili for some reason.
Yes, she does.
Again, I think that's a thing of the time.
And that comes up later too. Like she in one episode there's like, I forgot what actually happens, but there's an alien that speaks, and they see it, from the ship, and everyone hears it in their own like native language, like
that's
Spock
interesting.
Spock hears it in Vulcan, I think Sulu hears it in Japanese, and Uhura hears it in Swahili.
Yes.
And so that comes up again, I think, a few times that she can speak Swahili.
That's interesting. So at least that's part of her character. But one thing that I wanted to say, though, about her, too, she actually is part of my favorite moment of the entire episode. The funniest part of the episode, for me anyway, was when she was talking to Spock, and Spock is just like, there are no moons on planet Vulcan.
Because that doesn't surprise me, yeah.
It's just something that it's just because, you know, she's talking about romance. And again, that's also something you could say is due to its time, where it's just like, oh, yeah, she's the only one who wants to talk about romance. Like, you really have Bones over there fawning over this woman, but, like, she's the one that's gushing over romance. But still, so she's gushing, and then you just have Spock. And again, great characterization to show you who and what Spock is. Like, okay, he's alien, but how so? So what? And he's just talking about his planet so nonchalantly. It's just, there are no moons. And then her reaction was just priceless. Like, it was just something that, it was a good sense of humor. Like, it wasn't, look, I have nothing, there's nothing wrong with a little saying fuck you, fuck off now and again. Like, that's always fun for me, especially if it's done creatively. Like, I love a good creative use of the word fuck off, or just fuck in general. It's always fun. It's fucktastic. Like, I just love it. But just her being able to just wittily just say that and just have it, like, connect, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you just don't fucking get romance, do you? Because in a way, it seems like she's kind of like, like to him in a sense. No, I know they're on the same ship, so she's not doing it completely, but still, like, a little bit of like, oh, like, hello, Mr. Spock. Very little, not enough to like, you know, have it be like a big thing, but maybe very little. And he's just like, romance? What is romance? Yeah. And it's like, oh God, like, oh God. Here's a fun question. What?
Oh, okay.
You first.
No,
first.
I was gonna bring up that there is an episode later that deals with Vulcan romance, if you want to call it, or Vulcan mating. But so that's just something to look forward to. But I wanted to just insert that in there.
That is fair.
I don't know if you saw it or not, but
wait, did I not sing this? Did I not do the theme right? Bum 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 bum. During the fight? Did I not?
Oh,
was that not the one during the fight?
Yeah, I didn't catch that. Yeah.
All right, I don't know if I did it wrong. It's been a while. Anyway, what I was going to ask you is this though. So I don't know much of TOS beyond the series itself. So when I have a feeling you do though. So at least a little bit more than I do. So when Bones says, and you can call me a nitpicker, when Bones says, "Lord have mercy," is there like an actual religion in Star Trek, or was that just like, it's the 60s, Jesus exists, fuck off?
That's a difficult question to answer because
is there religion in Star Trek? Yeah.
What?
Because I've heard that there is religion in Star Trek, but maybe not TOS. Oh, okay.
There is, but like it could also be like I don't know if it doesn't get really into whether any one specific character is religious or who follows God or not, but throughout Star Trek and I'm talking like the original series, Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise, Deep Space Nine. Throughout Star Trek, characters do say things like "Oh my God" and "God help us" and things like that. Yeah. Whether they're religious or not is another thing that's not really explained. But religion does exist in Star Trek.
Okay.
But
I only say that because
they could just be saying it too.
Oh,
just
no,
as
of course.
A phrase.
I only bring it up because when I said, like, it's the 60s, God exists, some people are probably like, what did he mean by that? On TV, to me anyway, and maybe I'm just not watching a lot of stuff on primetime, but to me, it seems like television, to try and not seem like they're going to step on anyone's toes, they don't mention, like, God anymore, really. especially stuff that kids could watch. Like, I don't really see, like, a television show that's like, oh, kids could watch this with their parents, and they'll be like, Lord have mercy, or like, God help us. Like,
really?
newer stuff. I'm talking about new stuff.
Yeah. I know characters do say, "Oh my God," but I don't know if they would say I don't know if they say "God help us." Maybe I'm not sure.
Well, because that's what Bones had literally said, like, "Lord have mercy on me" when he shot Nancy.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ, like that's powerful. It's very, and I'm not saying that it's a good thing, by the way, to do the like, we can't mention God, because again, it's just networks feeling like, ooh, we have to.
Yeah.
What if we say God help us, and then someone watching in the Bible Belt is like, oh no, you sinned. It's like, I don't think that person would care that much. But again, that's a network exec being like, I don't know. So you don't really see stuff like that on, from what I've seen on TV nowadays. But,
yeah.
no, but I'm just saying that, like, it was just a powerful moment. So and it made me think, like, wait, this is like their future, their scientific, like they don't really, they bring up like, oh, science this, science that. I mean, they have all this tech, and he said Lord, and I'm like, that's interesting. Although apparently it's canon, Bones is from Earth. I don't know about the rest of them, but Bones is from Earth, and apparently from the South.
Most of them are from Earth.
Okay, no, because the reason why I say that is because, like, I've mentioned this I mentioned this to John as well. I don't know who is from Earth and who isn't, because there's supposed to be a federation. So, like, in my head, I'm like, Kirk, I know Kirk is legit from Earth, but, like, just because, I don't know. I know Sulu is Japanese, but, like, I'm trying to think of someone, like, a random crewman. Just because they look humanoid, to me, doesn't mean that they have to be from Earth.
Well, yeah,
or human.
that's true.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
But I know that most of the main cast, aside from Spock, is from Earth.
All right, that's fair.
And
But I
can't speak for crew member with bucket in episode 36.
Whoa, hold on. Do you mean that crew member with bucket from episode 36?
I'm just
I know, right?
Yeah.
But still, when I was only bringing it up though because I remember from, like, there was a cameo in TNG episode 1, and, like, Bones just had the thickest Southern accent. So I'm like, all right, you're an Earth boy, I get it.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the rest of them because, again, it's been so long since I've seen the original series. Like, I know that Kirk is an Earth boy simply due to the fact that in the newer movies, I know this may seem blasphemous to some, but the Kelvin timeline, you have a situation where you see Kirk doing his delinquent thing on Earth. So I'm like, okay, you are an Earthman.
Yeah.
But then, of course, you see, like, other people. Like, obviously, when you see a green woman, you're like, okay, you're not from Earth. I get it. Anyone can come to Earth now. You can leave Earth. I get it. You're not from Earth. But I never know if someone is just looking humanoid and they're trying to save budget and they're like, oh, but he's not from Earth. Or if it's like, no. If they look this way, then they're definitely from Earth. I just don't know. So, either way, though, anything you want to say about this one before we wrap this one up, Anthony?
I definitely liked this one. It was a good introduction to the rest of the series and what's coming next. So, yeah.
Yeah. I definitely. I'm sure some people are like, Matt hated it. No, I really didn't. Like I mentioned earlier, I
didn't get the impression that you hated it.
This is why we're friends, Anthony. But I like I like the practical effects a lot. Right. Mm-hmm. I just think that it's a problem because it doesn't fit as well with the remastered stuff. But again, like, that's just why, like, but I'm okay with it not being remastered, but it has been. So that is what it is. So yeah, but I'm okay with I love the practical effects. Like, again, I mentioned that I'm a fan of, like, I used to be a fan of Power Rangers. Now I'm more of the Japanese side of things. But yeah, I have no problem with people in rubber suits. Not a problem whatsoever. So, and I don't have a problem with the sets either. Yes, of course, they're low budget, but guess what? You got to make it work, man. It's 1967. What am I supposed to expect? Come on. So, like, it looked great. I think it looked good for its time. Not great, but it did what it could for its time, and I respect it. And I just, I don't have a problem with the general plot. Yes, they went into an odd direction, in my opinion, because I think they could have just beamed her back down and called it a day and told the Federation, hey, that's a fucking no-go planet. You tell everybody. That's a no-go.
Yeah.
Yes, arguably you could say that is killing her, to be fair, but I still think it's a bit different than, actually, I don't know, maybe one is considered more humane than the other. I don't know. I'm just saying that, it was interesting they went with that route when their exact phrase is, she's the last of her kind and she's just trying to eat. But
yeah.
I didn't hate the episode. Again, it's the thrills in it, definitely, like you said, and like I mentioned earlier as well, great way to tell people this is what to expect week to week, because I don't want to say that this is uncharacteristic of TOS week to week. It's just interesting how the characters change and grow over time, and that's what I really do like about this show, even though there really isn't a lot of continuity between episode to episode necessarily, because that's just how it was created. It's meant to be able to pick it up at any point. They don't want people to feel really lost while watching it. But it is nice to think about the stuff that I know about the characters from the show and go, wow, they're going to change over time. They're going to grow, and they're actually going to, in a way, develop.
Yeah.
So honestly, I really did enjoy the episode. I think though, to be fair, the one of the pilots, not the one with Chris Pike before he regenerated into Captain Kirk, but the one with Captain Kirk, where yes, he did. He regenerated into Captain. No one quote the menagerie at me, all right? He regenerated into Captain Kirk, and so but for real though, I think the plot with Kirk and you have psychic powers, that to me is more interesting than this, yes. Mm-hmm. And I think it would have been a good opener. I mean, it was technically the pilot, if you will. But
yes.
I do think this was a good episode, though, to be fair.
Yes.
So
it
was
really
good.
Was.
Yeah. So anyway, so nothing else to say as we wrap this one up?
Can't think of anything.
All right, then. I love it. Just after we hang up, damn it, there was this one thing that I really wanted to. Well, Anthony. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for listening in. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in. I don't know how you tuned in though, because there's so many ways you could tune in. You could go to our Blog Talk Radio, which is blogtalkradio.com/thoseguysonthe-radio. You could go to our YouTube channel, Those Guys on the Radio, and find us there. Find video versions of this. Sadly, you don't get to see our beautiful mugs, but still video versions of this. Or you could search up Those Guys on iTunes and find all of our audio podcasts there, and you can download them, and you could listen to our rants on the go. Do you want to hear two guys in their late 20s talk about Star Trek on the go? Well, you came to the right place. Also would like to mention as well, if you want to follow all of our different exploits, not just Star Trek Thursday, but also, Anthony does come on to our gaming channel as well, Those Guys Play. So if you want to follow all of our different exploits, then you can actually go over to our social media accounts to follow us all there. Basically our Facebook, facebook.com/thoseguysonthe-radio, our Twitter, which is @thoseguysradio, and our website, which is teacherproduction.net. And also, I mentioned our channels before. If you want to go directly to the source, Those Guys Play, Those Guys on the Radio, and TG Productions. TG Productions is more of a hodgepodge. We do very interesting stuff there. Usually a little bit anime related, a little bit Japanese superhero related, stuff like that. But Those Guys on the Radio stuff usually is podcast reviews, usually audio only, and also talking about different news topics on Keikaku Corner, which you were on, Anthony. We were talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yep.
Yeah, the Netflix show, the live action one that's coming up. If there's any more news about that, I should probably get you back on. So we talk about that there, and of course our Those Guys Play channel. Play is in the name. We do Let's Plays, but also other types of gaming content like news and reviews and things like that. So again, love you all. Take care. Tune in next time for another episode of Star Trek Thursday. Check the description box down below for all the merch and the Patreons and all the other stuff. But that's okay. If you don't support us that way, that's fine. Just watching, listening is amazing. So take care, boldly go where no one's ever gone before, all that stuff.
And be nice to species if it's the last of their kind.
Yeah, Jesus. Actually, just be nice to any species. Actually, let's also put that in there too, because I want to
be nice to all species, yeah.
But especially those when it's the last of their kind. Jesus H. All right. Lord have mercy. Bye.